Well, President Volodymyr Zelensky will travel to Saudi Arabia next week for talks between Ukrainian and US officials aimed at ending the war. It comes as European leaders met for what's been dubbed their watershed moment, committing hundreds of billions to strengthening their defences as the continent's tug of war with the US and Russia intensifies. Senior correspondent Lisette Raymer reports.
As if operating in a parallel universe, President Zelensky stepped out of the extraordinary hostility of Washington and into the warm embrace of the European Union, welcomed with handshakes and hugs and reassurances that Europe will stand with Ukraine.
During all this period and last week, you stay with us, and of course from all the Ukrainians, from all our nations, big appreciation. We are very thankful that we are not alone, and these are not just words, we feel it.
Just hours before arriving at the Brussels summit, Zelensky's hometown was hit. 4 people killed by a Russian ballistic missile, the sort that would likely have been intercepted if the United States hadn't just cut all intelligence sharing with the Ukrainians. And the abandonment doesn't stop there. Of the millions of families forced to flee Ukraine when the war began, those who ended up settling in the land of the free may soon find themselves homeless once again, with Trump now considering revoking their legal status as refugees and kicking them out of the United States.
We're not looking to hurt anybody, and we're certainly not looking to hurt them. And I'm looking at that, and there were some people that think that's appropriate and some people don't, and I'll be making a decision pretty soon.
But there does appear to be some thawing to their frosty relationship, with a meeting in Saudi Arabia between US and Ukrainian officials in the calendar for next week.
I think it'll be a good meeting. I really do believe that. Hopefully that'll be a good signal to the Russians, because they have been proactive too in wanting to get something done here.
Although Russia's foreign minister has already ruled out a European peacekeeping force operating in Ukraine as part of any deal. Such a deployment would mean a direct, official, undisguised involvement of NATO countries in a war against the Russian Federation. He said this cannot be allowed. There is hope, however, that after US military aid was pulled from Ukraine, a positive meeting next week could at least see that aid restored.
It is a pause. Exactly what he said from the beginning, pause pending a true commitment to a path to peace.
The Trump whiplash is widespread. 2 days since the controversial tariffs were brought into effect against Mexico and Canada, the US president has now delayed them for a month to protect the American car industry.
And no president did anything about it until I came along, and then I did a lot about it.
Europe can certainly no longer be accused of inaction. Today's summit, described as a watershed moment, saw them agree to unleash up to 800 billion euros to beef up the continent's defences. And the French president has signalled he is open to extending his country's nuclear umbrella to its allies.
Rearming Europe, spent on defence and deterrence. Europe is capable of standing up on its own 2 feet.
The show of EU unity marred only by objections from Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, an admirer of both Putin and Trump. Not yet a complete and committed coalition of the willing, but Europe is on a mission to fend for itself.
Well, OK, Lisette, what will President Zelensky be hoping to get out of this meeting next week?
Well, first of all, it's perhaps important to note that President Zelensky himself will not be involved in those actual talks. So it'll be representatives from Ukraine and the US that enter into those discussions. But the fact that they're happening at all is significant. It's progress in that the US is almost realising and accepting that Ukraine will play a crucial role in these negotiations and in maintaining the peace in their country. President Zelensky has said not a lot. He said that he hopes they are meaningful, these discussions. America's gone one step further and said that they want to establish a framework for a peace deal and, interestingly, an initial ceasefire.